Robyn Flynn filling in for Elias Makos today and tomorrow. So I'll be with you from 9 to noon tomorrow as well. Canadians are expected to spend over $1,600 this holiday season on either gifts or stuff for holiday dinners, entertainment, etc. This is more than $100 over what we spent last year. According to a new report from investment marketing company JLL, 44% of Canadians say they plan to increase their holiday spending this year, while just 23% say they plan to decrease their spending. But how much is too much, and when does it start to spiral out of control? Joining us now is retail analyst Carl Boutet. Good morning, Carl.
Happy holidays, Robyn.
And to you, $1,600 is a lot of money, especially when you consider how expensive life has gotten lately. Where is most of this money going? Are we spending it all on gifts?
No, I think JLL is taking in a broad range in that number in there. There's probably a little bit of food and non-discretionary spending in there, and I think Canadians are also anticipating inflation throughout that. So it's a surprising number because we've had other reports that were much lower. So I guess it depends which survey or study you want to believe, but that one definitely kind of caught our attention.
For sure. I guess it makes sense too, especially if you're doing like a big Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day dinner. Groceries are so expensive. So just, buying your turkey can get really, really expensive if that's what you're eating on Christmas Day. Or I know some folks still do prime rib. My goodness, beef is so expensive this time of the year. So that's going to cost you.
Yeah, well, we know that the inflation around food has been much higher than other categories. The other reports also have been talking about people being much more conservative and more careful about buying on promotion. We know that the Black Friday season really, starting earlier and earlier. So we've had people that have been shopping since late October for this. So maybe that's being captured in those numbers where it's spending over a much broader period of time. So it's hard to exactly know, but the majority of the surveys right now are telling us is that yes, spending is up, but it's more conservative in the way it's being spent, much more sensitive to promotions, loyalty programs, and those sort of behaviors that at least we get the impression that yes, we're spending more money, but we're getting more for our dollar as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the Black Friday spend. I was online. I don't remember what website I was on this morning, and I already saw a Boxing Day sale. I'm like, Christmas hasn't even happened yet, and you've already got Boxing Day sales. Like typically these sales were one-day events, right? You had Black Friday after American Thanksgiving. You had Boxing Day the day after Christmas. Now these are like 2-3 week-long shopping events, which, to be honest, kind of cheapens it a little bit, I think.
Yeah, there's promotional fatigue, and to your point, I think the key word there is event, and they're no longer days, and they're spread over weeks and in some cases months. And Boxing Day has been, we've seen Boxing Day in August. So there's a lot of tricks of the trade to entice shoppers to grab those promotions, and I suspect this Boxing Day promotion you saw is just one more example of that. So there's more and more of that. It's not a new phenomenon, but what is sort of newer is the idea that we're stretching out this Black Friday, Cyber Monday sort of period and starting it earlier in some cases late October and sort of running it right up till I've seen some Black Friday promotions going on till mid-December. So there's a lot of calendars are getting a little confused, and what we do know is shoppers are looking for promotions and are looking for deals and trying to sort of offset that turkey price you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, in conversation with retail analyst Carl Boutet, are you noticing spending habits where people are relying on credit more? Because that's something that I've been guilty of in the past. You feel like you got to keep up with the Joneses, right? You got stuff to buy, gifts to buy, and you end up relying on your credit cards, which is very high interest debt that compounds daily, and you don't want to do that. So what I did instead this year is I tried to work a few extra hours and put money aside specifically for Christmas. And it can be frustrating and it's hard, and I wasn't making a ton of money on these little projects that I was doing, but I was like trying to think of it as, instead of, I'm only making X number of dollars per hour, I was, this bought the dollhouse that my daughter wants, thinking of it that way. Are you noticing people rely on credit more though for their holiday spending?
And there are different credit schemes out there too. Now we have buy now, pay later, which is a strong phenomenon we've noticed in the last 2-3 years has really taken off, where it's sort of these equal payment plans that we have access to at the till in some cases, like, oh, would you like to pay this over 12 months instead of paying for it now? Which people think, oh, well, that's not bad because it doesn't go on my credit card, but it is another form of credit that we know has been increasing steadily, especially around disposable products, even things that have shorter life cycles. In some cases, could be even grocery, which I think is alarming. But we're seeing more so like in the clothing retailers and that sort of category where they've benefited very much from this buy now, pay later phenomenon. But credit card spending is up. We know the level of household debt is always, sort of pushing up and up. And and I believe it's also, we call it a K-shape. So it's like we either have people that are really, truly indebted or those that are saving a lot. So we have both ends of the spectrum, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon. And I'm sure the people that are more so on the spending side are feeling it harder and harder to keep up, as you say, with the Joneses.
Yeah, especially if you come from a big family. I'll speak about myself for a moment. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, so I have a lot of nieces and nephews that I have to shop for this time of the year. But a few years ago, my brother and sisters and I, we all said, you know what? We have to stop shopping for each other because there's just too many kids. So we only buy now for the kids. And, we don't need anything at this point in time. At this point, it's like, okay, we have everything we need. Let's just focus on the kids. But having those conversations is really hard, isn't it?
It is. And I think when you're in larger families or you have wider spending to anticipate, usually you'll see families they'll start even earlier. If you want to take my personal story, and I remember my grandmother, because there was a lot of grandkids, she would start shopping in the spring or even before that, start looking at sales and be like, Grandma, what are you? Well, I'm buying for Christmas. And it was like, April. And you're like, oh my God. Okay. She was really ahead of the curve. But I think that's sort of an old reflex and the idea of the broader families. And to your point, I think now we're more sensitive to that, and we're being a little more careful. We understand, especially with inflation and all the fixed costs that we can't avoid in day-to-day life that have gone up dramatically, especially since the pandemic and with inflation. So now we're more sensitive, I think, to those discretionary spends, those gifts that maybe, as you put it, we already have enough stuff. So how do we shop that? How do we find things that are having a little more meaning, but still, I think we still like to please and find ways to surprise and delight our loved ones. So, obviously the retailers are still doing well, and the numbers we're seeing from the retailers here in Montreal, especially downtown, are surprisingly uplifting. So we'll see how that all nets out, but right now it's looking pretty good.
I like as much as possible to try and buy from smaller businesses. I know it's so easy on Amazon. I bought a bunch of stuff on Amazon as stocking stuffers. It's just, you look, it's there, it's in your cart, it's ordered, it's there like the next day. I know it's really easy, but small businesses in particular, I like to support them as much as possible around the holidays. So if you can spend some money at a small business instead of a big box store, right? That's one way that it actually helps the economy.
Absolutely. And we know there's sort of that behavior intrinsically built in as we get right up to the 25th, and those shipping options become a little more complicated as we come right up to the to the day of local businesses tend to benefit from that last minute sort of impulse buy. And obviously we encourage people to shop local and support the local retailers, especially in the year where Amazon shut down all their warehouses in Quebec and still, according to some reports, capture 2 out of every $3 spent online. So, it's crazy that there's still that volume, but as you point out, the convenience factor is hard to neglect, and sometimes it requires a bit of an extra effort to support local retailers, but it's well worth it.
Retail analyst Carl Boutet, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you a very, very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Robyn.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.